My story starts in November of 1996. I'm originally from Greenwood, and that's where the story started. My dad was dying with a brain tumor. It was the kind of brain tumor that killed John McCain last year. And a business associate of mine told me, said, Steve, don't let him go till you sit down and talk to him. He said, don't go unburden yourself of a lot of things that you've done because you're 40-something years old, but just go sit down and talk to him and just have a man-to-man. So it took me a couple days to screw up my courage, and I did go down there. And there I am. I'm walking into the house that I grew up in. There he is in his bedroom, and he's laying in this hospital bed. And I walked up, and I pulled a chair like this, and I sat down, and I said, I need to talk to you. And he said, sure, bud. And I said, I want you to tell me what's important. And he said, well, it's real simple. He said, you learned the important stuff when you were in Sunday school when you were 7 years old. You learned important stuff when you were in the Boy Scouts when you were 12 years old. And he said, I've always told you, when you get knocked down, get back up. Don't quit. If you have to walk sideways for a day or two, just keep going. Just keep making progress. And one thing that he told me more, and I told my daughters this time and time again, is you can do anything for 30 minutes, including stand on your head. And of course, we all know that 30 minutes is just an analogy for God knows how long it's going to take. And he said, don't ever forget that. And then he looked at me and he said, the last thing I need to tell you is Semper Fi. My dad was a Marine, and Semper Fi is short for Semper Fidelis, which is the Marine Corps motto, and it means always faithful, and that was my dad. He wasn't a butt-kicking Marine, but he was just somebody that you could count on. I've got friends here tonight, their dad rode with General Patton, and he was the same kind of man in the Army. And their dad and my dad sat beside each other in choir. And they were the kind of guys that you always knew where they were and you knew where to find them. And then I looked at him and I said, after he told me all this, I said, do you have any regrets? And he said, I have one. He said, I'm not going to get to see your daughters grow up, my girls. And they were not quite 2 and 9 years old at the time. And I said, what about anything else? And he said, I've had a good life and I have no regrets. Well, a few days later, he was gone. A couple of years later, a war erupted. I found myself in a divorce, and it was tracking along like a divorce, and it wasn't my first one, and I'm not going to get into numbers, okay? I'm not going to talk about romance tonight either. Anyway, I recognized what was going on, and it was tracking pretty normal, and then all of a sudden it got real ugly, and I was in a custody battle for my 2 daughters. And I was an only child, and I was in marriage number whatever it was. And somehow or another, the court, through the process, decided that Steve would be a custodial parent. And here's an only child with 2 little girls that are now about 11 and 4, and we're starting a family. And I didn't do this by myself. My mother was still alive, and she was a big help, and a lot of people chipped in and helped, but we were an unusual little family. And if you've ever seen the end of Mrs. Doubtfire, the Robin Williams voiceover about different kinds of families, well, that was us. You know, as one daddy, 2 daughters. We did most things the way a lot of people did, and then we did some things that were done differently. And I was not a helicopter dad, but I may have been slightly overprotective of my daughters. Not long after, hey, that's my grandson Graham over there. Not long after the court had moved them, I picked them up from Wednesday night visitation, and my oldest daughter, Anna, got in the car and said, look, Daddy. And there was a set of latex nails that were about that long, some color that I didn't like, and they looked like they were about that long. And I was just, my heart started pounding, my ears started thumping, and we went to the mall And we walked into the nail salon, and I held Anna's hand up, and I said, I don't know who did this, but you are going to undo it right now. And all the ladies behind the mask were like this, mumbling. And Anna showed me which one, and I carried her over there and sat down, and I told the lady, I said, the sooner you get started and the sooner you get finished, the sooner I go away, and that's a good deal for you. So it was painful, and it was embarrassing for Anna, but they took the nails off, and we went home. And a week or two later, they come and get in the car, and Anna says, look, Daddy. But they were short, they were buff, they were cut, they were age appropriate for an 11, 12-year-old little girl. So that was a big sigh of relief. And she said, you know, Daddy, so we went in there and sat down, and the lady behind the mask said, do your daddy know you here? So we got that cured. My youngest daughter, who's not here tonight, Jessie, is out in Salt Lake City. She works at the University of Utah now. She was in the 4th grade, I think, and they had a homework assignment, and it says, write 2 paragraphs about what you want to be when you grow up. And I didn't do homework, I just checked it. And it was 2 paragraphs, and she turned it in. And came back 2 days later, and a big F. And it did not meet the goals of assignment. And I said, what happened? She said, I don't know, Daddy, she just handed it out. I was in school the next day, kind of like the nail salon scenario. Somebody want to explain this to me? And I had a conference with the teacher, and I sat down in there, and I said, can you tell me how you came up with this grade? And my kids were in private school, by the way, okay? And she said, well, here at Yada Yada Academy, we want to strive to have our children become something more than just children that work, say, at Toys R Us, which is what your daughter wrote. And I said, oh, really? This is the 4th grade, right? She is 9 years old, right? Well, Steve, she should have aspirations. I said, well, it says here she wants to help people. That's a pretty good aspiration. And I said, let me explain to you where this probably came from. I said, in the mornings, I have control of the TV. That's the only way we can get out the door. And we watch CNBC, business news. And guess what's been in the news a lot lately? Toys R Us. So maybe if you had asked her, did she want to run the register, stock shelves, drive a truck, or be the freaking chairman of the board, you might have found out why she wrote the paper the way she did. So if you could take this back and reconsider it and get your foot off my child's aspirations, I certainly would appreciate it. Anyway, I may have been a little overbearing from time to time. But we were unusual. We had fun. They went to school clean, well-fed, well-studied. They had a good night's rest, but they didn't always have bows in their hair. Did you, Anna? But anyway, we were unusual, but I love my children, and I tried to apply everything my dad had taught me. And I want to take you now to about a year ago. It was a Groundhog Day last year. It's Friday, Groundhog Day. I don't remember what the weather was like, but I was not having a good day. And now I'm over here at St. Francis, and I have a major cardiac event going on. And it's Friday night, it's flu season, and I'm just a number waiting for daylight to get an EKG, and I've already had like 12 in the ambulance in my living room and in the emergency room, and they just needed to wait till the doctor got in so they could find out exactly what was going on. And after several days, I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. And I'm the one laying in the hospital bed this time. And I'm thinking, God, how did I get here? What did I do? Could it be 45 years of smoking cigarettes? No, that didn't have anything to do with it. Could it be 45 years of long neck Budweisers and 12-year-old Scotch? No, that didn't have anything to do with it. Could it be 45 years of dipping French fries in Duke's mayonnaise at the Dixie Drive-In in Greenwood? That might have had something to do with it. But anyway, I'm faced with the things that it's like being an only child and being in sales for 30 years, I can talk my way into things, I can talk my way out of things, I can talk my way around things. And now my butt's against the wall, and I got to do something. And you know, National Smokeout Day would come, and I wouldn't make it till 11 o'clock most times. Thank God it was only once a year to have to live with that guilt. But anyway, I thought about the things my daddy had told me, and it's like, don't quit, don't lay down, keep going. You can do anything for 30 minutes. Well, I'd had 30 minutes that turned into 20 years of raising two precious little girls. And now here I got 30 minutes of let's get Steve well. So my 30 minutes in the last year has turned into I don't smoke. I do not drink alcohol anymore. And I'm not a crusader, but I do appreciate the applause. And most of all, I do not dip French fries and onion rings in Duke's mayonnaise. I eat fruits and vegetables and fish and chicken, and I have my daughter, my son-in-law, and my grandson Graham over here, and I'm going to do all I can to make sure that I don't have the regrets that my dad had. Thank you very much.